Hi, I'm Delaney, and for this paper, I dove into maternal mortality in the United States. Maternal mortality can be described as the death of a woman during pregnancy, childbirth, or within a 42-day period following birth. This is a significant issue worldwide, but it is increasingly concerning in the United States. Rates of maternal death have improved since the 19th century, but more recently, regardless of the intense medical advances seen by the United States, the maternal mortality rates have remained stagnant, and this is a problem. This fact gives us insight into major healthcare disparities within the United States. And for this paper, I more specifically wanted to look at how varying aspects of individual identity affect rates of maternal mortality in the United States. My research question was how individuals' race, socioeconomic status, and access to proper and adequate healthcare affect maternal mortality in the United States. My argument is that although rates of maternal mortality have improved, the U.S. remains worse than any other industrialized nation because of the continuing impact of paternalistic and exclusionary medical care, as well as the influence of income on quality of care and the overall inaccessibility of proper healthcare services. Previous literature and research on this topic often only look at one aspect of individual identity to explain the disparities in care. And most of the studies that I looked at found that Black women receive the worst maternal care pre and post-birth. I also looked at a lot of studies that explored the historical context of maternal care and mortality. One of those sources was The History of Childbirth in America, written by Nancy Dye in 1980. Dye explored the history of childbirth across time in America, starting in the earliest days with midwives, which are holistic birth attendants, and following the shift from midwifery to hospital-based care. This gave me a lot of background for what midwifery looked like and why the switch to hospital-based care happened, and ultimately harming so many women down the line. A second really significant source that I utilized was regarding how race and socioeconomic status affect the accessibility and the quality of care on abortion access, fertility clinics, and more in the United States. This source was titled Different and Not Equal: The Uneven Association of Race, Poverty, and Abortion Laws on Abortion Timing, written by Alexis Salazzo. She explored the results of a 2008 abortion patient survey that covered many state laws regarding abortion. She found that state laws regarding the trimester of pregnancy and allowance of abortion to have the greatest negative impacts on Black and lower socioeconomic status patients. Her research illustrated the relevance of abortion laws for shaping timing and access of abortion for women, highlighting how heavily these differ among racial and socioeconomic groups within the United States. These articles really helped me shape my argument. Firstly, Dye's work on the history of care in the United States was really helpful to see how and where we got to where we are today. This article really also highlighted the extremity of exclusionary care in the United States and how the medicalizing of the birthing process ultimately harmed so many women. Midwifery is a practice for women and done by women. It is very centered around the holistic care of mother and child. It also highlighted how medicine and hospitals are patriarchal institutions created and centered around and for men. Dye discusses the accessibility of midwifery historically and currently, specifically for underserved communities and minority women in order to combat maternal death. Secondly, Salazzo's paper dives into a different aspect of my paper. Her article helped me address my later arguments. Her research gave me major insight into how the inability to access abortion care affects certain communities in the United States, and how this in turn affects maternal mortality. That threats to abortion right have dramatically increased in the 21st century, and how these laws so unfairly affect women of color and women occupying lower socioeconomic status groups. White women do not experience the same effects of these abortion laws. Access to proper health care, including abortion and fertility clinics, directly applies to the argument I am making. Abortion is health care for women. These clinics offer a plethora of care pertaining to a healthy pregnancy for women, and the inability to access it contributes to the stagnant maternal mortality rates within the United States. Overall, I feel like I learned a lot with this assignment. I read a lot of research on topics I had little information on before, and some topics that I thought I knew pretty well, but I learned even more about. I think my final draft will possibly need a little bit more research on the current realities of the healthcare industry and what can be done for mothers and women. I have a lot of history of care that has set up the healthcare system today in my paper, but I could use more research to bridge the two together and create a stronger argument. My research into maternal mortality in the United States has shed a light on the critical issue that persists despite the United States' medical prowess. This paper reveals a deep-seated healthcare disparities within the nation. By examining the intersectionality of race, socioeconomic status, and access to care, I have uncovered how these factors contribute to disparities in the maternal care through looking into the history of care in the United States, racial and socioeconomic disparities in access to care, access to abortion health care, and more.